Punchy Panda podcast. It's me. The show's here. Big news. We're going to be dropping info on that UFC Rochester card. Big event for our welterweights. Kevin Lee making his UFC welterweight debut against former lightweight champion and perennial welterweight contender at this point, Rafael dos Anjos. Big takeaway is, what is 165 going to be like? We have perennial contenders at both weight classes, Kevin Lee and RDA. And let's be honest, to me, it feels like the UFC is in a position where they have stars, too many stars at lightweight, too many stars at welterweight, too few numbers. Seems like a done deal. And if this fight's super exciting, and if Kevin Lee can get the win, we know he's a big advocate for this division, maybe we can see some growth here. A big telltale to tell about that would be a few fights down the line, but we'll get there. But I want to stick with Kevin Lee because a lot's been made of his move up to welterweight. Losing to Ayala Quinta, losing the interim championship fight, people are looking down on him. People don't think he can win the big one at this moment. But you got to remember, Kevin Lee's so young, he's so charismatic, and he's a product of the Conor McGregor era. He's here to make exciting fights, and he's damn sure here to make exciting matchups in the future. Co-main event, Ian Heinisch, Shoeface Jr., coming out party. I really like what they've been doing in this ESPN era, really. They've been making it seem like all the unappreciated talent is either getting in a co-main event spot in this new era or in a main event spot. And I appreciate that. Ironically, Kevin Lee is more ranked than his opponent, at least at lightweight, but RDA has definitely had the harder road with people. The way he took out Neil Magny sticks out in my mind. We'll get to him a little bit later in the show. And what really sticks out in my mind about this contest is this is me personally, the debut of the 165-pound division. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. 165 has technically arrived. These are lightweights who are choosing to fight at welterweight. We have Nate Diaz, who I'll again get to later, going up to welterweight, as well as Anthony Pettis. We have a subdivision getting created here, and that's very interesting. Also, more interesting things coming from the card that we're going to get through to today's show. So let's just roll on into it. Let me help you make some money. Big fight odds coming out of this week. Goodness. If you are ballsy, you can make a lot of money on a parlay. But big favorites coming out. Desmond Green and Javi Ramos are both 700 favorites coming into the fight. Incredible. Desmond Green, incredible run. Javi Ramos, incredible run. 3 first-round submissions in a row in the UFC. He's coming in hot. But their opponents, well-credentialed, coming outside of the UFC. I think that's really why they're really getting that much push. It's because they're just a little bit farther out. They're proven commodities inside the octagon. And the most important thing, personally, when you got somebody like Desmond Green going into the octagon, trying to make a statement, he's going to do it against someone who's not, unless you're his level. And Desmond Green is very high level. And so is Javi Ramos. His submissions are so slick, and he's so strong. I can see why they're favorites. Also, a big favorite is, unfortunately, going to be Vicente Luque. He was already a 5-1 favorite over Neil Magny because people are just super high on him. But 5-1 favorite over somebody like Neil Magny, perennial contender. I know he's been falling off the horse lately, but man, that just seemed a little shocking. But of course, we'll get to Neil Magny's news a little later. But he's going to be a big favorite against a newcomer coming into the UFC named, it escapes me, unfortunately, but a name that you do need to look out on those bet odds, and you might have a little upset. Charles Jordan. He's a former TKO dual-weight champ outside the UFC. He's coming in his UFC debut against Desmond Green. That, I feel like, is going to be a high-level fight, and Desmond Green always fights to level his opponents, so I'm very excited about that. Let me pop in my notes real quick. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of storylines coming out of this card, And the first one is going to be unfortunate. I mentioned a little bit earlier, Neil Magny. Personally, I thought he was the poster child for people being clean. Trained in Denver, long, lengthy welterweight. I just thought, obviously, if anybody's going to be popping, it's not going to be somebody like him. I was wrong. Neil Magny, unfortunately, popped for the most difficult thing I've ever seen in a row. Hydroxy LGD 4033, in other words, hot P. And he was pulled from his card. He's going to be fighting USADA now, unfortunately. And it's over, guys. You hear me? The sight test is over. There's no more. You look at a guy and you think he's not on PEDs. This is not. That is over. It's done. TJ Dillashaw, now Neil Magny, people who've been training out of that Denver Institute. What's going on up there? Shrooms just became legal, so I don't know what's happening. But explanations, and honestly, it's a bad look. This is a really bad look for that camp. It's a really bad look for that area. And, Denver has always been an area where people have believed endurance, strength is fostered, even back into the early UFCs. 5,000 feet means something. Ask Cain Velasquez. People believe that you can have an advantage by training at that altitude. So is that kind of a cover for using these steroids and using these PEDs? EPO is supposed to increase your ability to have output. So is altitude. I don't know if this hydroxy mumbo jumbo does, but personally, it guts me that Neil Magny is not on this card because of something like that. Also, now that you know how to make a little money on Vicente Luque, Davi Ramos, and Desmond Green, let's get into those big storylines. We already talked about, unfortunately, Neil Magny. Now we have to talk about the unfortunate featherweight division. I mean, personally, I feel like this is an improvement. This is a fight where Mika Anderson can really prove that the featherweights are here. She's not fighting a bloated welterweight. Bantamweight. She's fighting somebody that should be at least nearer at her rank. Felicia Spencer's undefeated coming out of the Invicta ranks, and man, she looked good out there. She looked real good. So the question is begotten. Is this a Kayla Harrison situation where we're going to build a division around a Megan Anderson and a Chris Cyborg? Or is this a special event situation like a CM Punk or a Jack Hager maybe? I'm not 100% sure, but this fight will tell us a lot. If Mika Anderson can win impressively, we have a star in that division. And if Felicia Spencer can win, we are building towards something, which I feel like is super, super important. Also, a big storyline coming out of this event is also for Sijara Eubanks. She is an entire case on her own. I thought the Shawweights were in trouble. Nico Montaño and her were trying to fight for so many times. He missed his weight. I'm like, man, she's like the Robert Whittaker of flyweight. She's got impressive performances, but just can't make that weight. And, you gotta look to the Kevin Gaslams of the world. When you move up in weight and you improve, and even Robert Whittaker, like I mentioned, when you move up and you perform well, man, that's all it takes. And if she can move up and perform well against someone like Aspen Ladd, undefeated in the UFC, undefeated coming into the UFC as well, that is going to make a huge statement. I'm not 100% sure if she can do it. She is fighting up a weight class, but you have to pay the price for missing weight. Got to pay the price for everybody basically waiting for you. You were supposed to be champion. At least a lot of people believe so. So if you're going to be that champion, you're going to make that weight, you're going to have to do it the right way. The hard way. I'm really interested to see what the UFC PI has to say about her weight cut and how her health is looking this week. Really impressed with her skill set, really impressed with her strength, and her jiu-jitsu is on point. always. But you got to make that weight in order to be considered a true contender. That's just all it is. All right, big stories coming out. We've already talked about Neil Magny popping. Denver, what's going on? We've already talked about the weight classes, 165 and 145. We talked about Sajara Eubanks and her lackluster performance at making weight, and hopefully she can make a better performance. But outside of those fights, outside of that card, I have a few more fights, a few more fighters that maybe you haven't looked for, or maybe you haven't been paying that much attention to. So one of the fights that you must see, obviously, is Kevin Lee's debut. You have to see what he looks like. Is he going to be performing at the same output? Sluggish with all the extra weight? Will he be new? Brand new Kevin Lee? Or will he just be new and improved? New weight class, new skills, and executing more fluidly. You got to see what happens to those featherweights. Megan Anderson needs a win. Like bad. So I don't know if she's even going to stay in the UFC if she loses. Personally, not looking too good. And let's be honest, we need to know if this featherweight division's real. Because I'm not sure, personally. Got to make sure we check out the wonderful, wonderful talent coming up in the division as well. Mike Trizano, coming from the Ultimate Fighter, is on the card. In the co-main event, we have Ian Heinisch, who's been looking fantastic in the UFC against, again, old stalwart Shoeface, Antonio Carlos Jr. We need big names in that Brazil market, especially after UFC 237. We need them. We need them. I just don't know if he's going to be the guy. He's been put in these positions before and he's lost. I just hope Carlos Jr. has a great performance, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Ian Heinisch has. Also, guys, speaking of Brazilian talent, Jim Miller showed out last week in the submission. Charles Oliveira, who was once tied with the most submissions, he's going to make his debut this year, taking on the talented Nick Lentz. Also on the card, let me just look up the main card really quick to see if anything pops out to me besides Mike Trizano. Ed Herman versus Patrick Cummins. You know, if we're talking about people who are stalwarts in the division, they've been around for a while. Danny Roberts, Hot Chocolate, coming through. And also, oh man, I completely slipped on this. If you guys want to make a little bit of money, sneak peek for you guys for listening to the end of the show. We have another 700 favorite, Julio Arce versus Julian Rosa. Julian Rosa has been known to be a dark horse. Let's not get caught slipping. And of course, Zach Cummins, UFC veteran, on the card as well. Big fights. A few names for the hardcore fans. And of course, we have plenty of action continuing. There's a big drought in between this UFC and June 1st in Stockholm. So we'll have a lot of news to discover between then. But before then, I just want to give you my take and reaction to Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade and all the big KOs coming out of Bellator. First things first, Rose Namajunas is a beast. We should be grateful that she chose to do the sport. She can do anything that she wants to do. She can be anybody she wants to be. But she has to use her mind. She has to be at peace mentally. And as you see, the moment she lost that peace, that split second, it was over. Fight stopped. She got power driven on her head. Namesake, just like in a WWE. When does that happen? When an opponent uses their namesake to get a finish. She becomes the winningest fighter in women's history, as well as the new UFC strawweight champion, Jessica Andrade. I remember seeing her in Cleveland at UFC 203 way back in the day when she made her strawweight debut, and I was like, oh boy, this is a problem. She has huge wins. Just look at her record, beating Rosie Sexton, beating Raquel Pennington. Come on, these are big women, bigger names. And she's going to be in the UFC Hall of Fame, I believe, if she continues such a reign. She has a lot of interesting opponents. Joanna, I'm very surprised she was very humble and not went straight for the jugular after that win. But I want to talk about another Brazilian winner who's also going to be entered in the history books. That's Patricio Pitbull Fear. I'll say his whole name. I'll put the respect on his name. The featherweight champion moves up to lightweight and knocks out his bitter rival Michael Chandler in the first round. Come on, boys and girls. This is bitter hate. This is heat that's been boiling for months and months and months and months. Are we going to just allow this to die down because of an early stoppage? Are we going to allow this feud to end anticlimactically? With one guy becoming the sole Bellator holder of 2 champions? The Bellator homegrown champ? I don't think we should. The title of Best Boy in Bellator is now the new dual weight champion Patricio Freire. Pitbull has been let loose in 2 divisions now. I'm not sure where he goes from here, but those 2 big Brazilian wins actually, I'll stop there. Douglas Lima. Holla. Who say he's not best boy in Bellator right now? Getting the biggest win of his career, KOing Michael Venom Page, knocking him from the ranks of the unbeaten with a vicious leg kick and uppercut. At first, I thought, man, Michael Page was not very lucky. He got caught, got kicked, and got caught. No, that was well planned. Douglas Lima's a beast. Douglas Lima's leg kicks are vicious, as for Roy McDonald and Andre Korshkov. And he is in that conversation of best boy in Bellator. Definitely. 3 big Brazilian wins. Let's get to the big Brazilian losses. First off, Anderson Silva loses by TKO in round 1. Big Brazilian wins, big Brazilian losses, unfortunately. Anderson Silva, another leg kick TKO. Man, unfortunately, he loses another one. This could have been his big opportunity to get back into that top 10. Jared Cannonier, another legend down. Another big name on his record. Killer Gorillas moving up in the division. Anderson Silva said he entered this contest with an injury. You never want to hear that, especially with somebody at his advanced age, especially with someone with his legacy. I really don't know where we go from here. There's plenty of fights at middleweight for him, to be honest. He's not getting washed out, not getting overwhelmed or beat down. His body's just not keeping up with him. And if he can, rebuild and recover, I definitely want to see him back at least one more time. And then Jose Aldo, again, someone who doesn't get overwhelmed or beaten. He's only lost to the best of the best in the division. Alexander Volkanovski is definitely one of the best. It's like I always say, he's like a Australian Chad Mendes, He does what he needs to do. He makes sure he has high volume, active pace, and pushes you back, keep you on that back foot, and that's how he implements his game the most. And you can see Jose Aldo was playing into his game very well and trying to counter. Good idea, to be honest, but the speed was just a slight difference, very small. Jose Aldo is one of the fastest in the division. We all know that. And honestly, it was a good showing. I don't want to live in a world where Anderson Silva and Jose Aldo are both calling for the title. So, if this is the world that we have to live in to keep that from happening, cool. Also, shout out to Clay Guida, taking on and defeating BJ Penn by unanimous decision. There was plenty of times where BJ looked out of there. Definitely looked like BJ gassed. But Clay Guida, that's his game. We're going to use that gas to our advantage. Additionally, the indomitable Ryan Spann, Superman, from the Contender Series, knocks out Little Nog. And luckily, thank goodness, light heavyweight is sort of open. There's a lot of open-ended room for someone like Little Nog who can get with Little Nog, Aldo, and Anderson out. Brazilian talent's looking low. Thank goodness the women in Brazil are stepping up like Amanda Nunes and Jessica Andrade to fill that void. I'm really impressed. I don't truly know what the future is going to hold for the divisions and Brazilian talent going forward. Everyone knows those overseas pay-per-views are never good on pay-per-view. Everybody knows that the women fights really don't do that great on pay-per-view either. So If the future for Brazil is in its females, we need to do something to make them feel big, make them feel like huge stars, make them feel like they have a real place in this organization, and make them feel like the future. Remember, Amanda Nunes was like, I really want to be in the Hall of Fame. She didn't think that with her resume before beating Cyborg that she even had a shot. Make them feel more at home like the men do. Speaking of men, shout out Warley Alves getting a big knockout, getting on track. Man, and shout out Araujo showing up from strawweight to bantamweight, getting a big knockout of Toledo Bernardo. Super impressed. All the Brazilian lost on the main card, but the champions didn't, and that's all that really matters. Man, what an event last week, what an event this week. Thank you guys so much for joining me on the Punchy Panda Show. Keep Cannon. Follow me on Facebook at Keep Cannon. You can always hit me up on Twitter at keep_good_Keith. Just like that, guys. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you folks next time. With Brazilian talent on the down for the legends and Brazilian talent on the up for the newcomers, I got hope for the UFC. And I got hope for us. Thank you guys for joining us on the Punchy Panda podcast. All my hardcores out there, hit me up on Twitter at keep_good_Keith on Twitter for every update and news for Punchy Panda. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at Keepy Cannon. That's right, K-E Epi. That's me. Thank you guys for joining me for the Punchy Panda podcast, and I'll see you folks next time.